Hello and welcome to Ditching Hourly. I'm Jonathan Stark, and today I am joined by guest Joel Clermont, repeat offender. Welcome back.
Thanks, Jonathan.
So today we are going to talk about something that we have been referring to as an all-you-can-eat subscription service. But first, Joel, can you tell folks a little bit about who you are and what you do, in case they didn't hear our previous episode?
Sure. Yeah, I'm a Laravel developer, so that's the specialty, and I'm an independent developer, and I work mainly with teams that are building SaaS applications. So that's sort of the niche that I inhabit.
Cool. And the last time you were on the show, you had not started your current business model. So could you tell folks a little bit about what the current structure of basically how you sell your services now, and maybe a little bit about how that compares to before?
Yeah, I think our last discussion was sort of the journey from hourly billing at my previous business, which was a larger agency, to value price billing, kind of fixed scope projects. And so since then, we've gone through another transition. And again, I say we, it's like me and my partner, but we both each have our own businesses. So it's a little weird. So if I'm saying we, it's not like the royal we. Cool. Literally is another person, Aaron. We work together. But so we made the shift to really going all in on this idea of, we call it a dev subscription, all you can eat, however you want to phrase it. But the basic idea is that you pay a fixed monthly amount, and it's something like you could turn on and off just like you would your Netflix subscription, right? So there are some other benefits that come to a company that may not need somebody for a long-term basis.
Perfect. Okay, great. So there's so many things to talk about here. So since I have behind the scenes information, I'll sort of throw you some softballs. When you first launched this, how did it go? Like, what did you do and what was the reaction?
Sure. There was even maybe a step before that. So what we had done previously was really focused on larger projects, 3 to 6 month projects. And there's always this downtime where, like, after you sell a project, like, well, what do we do next, right? Like, what's the next big project, either for the same client or for a different client? And so what sort of cropped up organically was the idea of, like, hey, can you fix a few bugs, like polish off some rough edges? And so I didn't want to price that value-based pricing, nor did I want to go back to hourly. So I said, what if we what's a budget? Like anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 for a month, and we'll just kind of tackle these smaller tasks, lower value but easier to do tasks. Mm-hmm. And what we'd find is, like, at the end of a project, almost everybody would opt into that. And so after a while, we had a number of these overlapping, and it was good from a cash flow perspective, but it was also a little challenging from, like, a time management perspective. So that's around the time that I heard about other people doing this subscription model, just as, like, even for doing project work, even for larger projects, maybe something that would take a year or longer, that's just how they priced it. And I thought, well, could we do that? And so we tried it without even making it a public offering. Just like the next time somebody came to us with a project, I said, why don't we try this approach? And I think at that point it was like $5,000 a month. So it was a little bit higher than what we were doing for the retainers, but still wasn't a super high ticket item. And that ended up not working great because we were definitely leaving money on the table and we were slowing the process down, right? So if somebody hired us for a big 3 to 6 month project, there was an assumption like we were really cranking on it. Like that was the goal. Yeah. Whereas with these subscription models, we're kind of pacing ourselves, like not purposely sandbagging our effort, but like realistically, based on what we're charging, there's only a certain amount of effort we're going to give you within a certain month. So, the sweet spot came, and kind of getting back to your question, was like, I think January 2024. Yeah. We publicly launched our site, nocompromises.io, entirely focused on the subscription model. And we bumped the price up to $7,500 a month. And that really landed with a splash. Like out of the gate, I think the first quarter, we had way more interest than we could possibly satisfy. So it told me there was something there. And there was a number of reasons that people said they liked it that I can get into if that's relevant.
Yeah, look, let's get there, but not yet. Because first I want to know, people get all wrapped around the axle with like little details like what did you call it? Where did,
Sure.
Did you replace your existing website, or was it just like, something you did over email and it didn't have the website? So like what could you tell people about the launch, sort of official launch, when it landed with a splash? Like, what did you do to get that to happen? What led up to it? Were you talking about it somewhere? How were you getting the word out? Was it podcast, mailing list, social media? Just up to the splash point where you're like, holy mackerel, this worked.
I will say it was some dumb luck, right? It was not, there was no grand marketing campaign behind it. So, I mean, we did have a newsletter at the time, a lot smaller than currently. So we did share it there. And I shared it in circles. I shared it on social media. And I think it was sort of the uniqueness, like nobody else in the Laravel or maybe even the broader PHP community had done this yet. Mm-hmm. So that was like the novelty of it. People were sharing it organically. Yeah. We also happened to have like the creator of Laravel said, "Hey, Joel's awesome. You should hire him." And like, nice. That alone, I'm still getting leads to this day where I always ask, "How did you hear about us?" "Oh yeah, that tweet, from 2024. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
So that was unsolicited, but very welcome. Mm-hmm. And then I think part of it too was just other people in my space, like I would call them peers, contractors, other agency owners. They were intrigued by it. And a couple of them even sent projects to me. Like they had a customer where it maybe wasn't a good fit for them for whatever reason. And they're like, hey, try out Joel. He's got a really simple pricing model. So it was sort of a combination of things, but no grand plan behind it.
Okay. And did you have the website updated at that time?
Yeah.
I feel like you told me at one point you didn't even have the page up yet and people were already buying it.
We did. Yeah. So we sold it most of 2023 without we had a website, but it didn't mention this at all. So leads would come to us just organically. I would pitch them on the idea and they said, sure, let's try it. But then 2024, I even hired a designer. Like I wanted to make a splash with this. I didn't really intend to, I didn't know how to do that, but I knew it had to look good and be like an eye-catching message and have good copy.
Yep.
So we did put the work in to do that. So when people hit the page, it was very clear, like we know what we're talking about, we're unique, and the pricing was very straightforward.
Okay, cool. And the pricing at the time was, if you recall,
$7,500 a month. Yeah, and we had a second tier, which I think was $13,500. Like, because there's two of us, it's like if you want us both actively working like two things at a time, then it was that. But the vast majority of people went with option one, that was $7,500.
Okay, so for people who maybe aren't familiar with the Laravel ecosystem, where do you think all this demand is coming from? So let me actually ask that a different way. So like your approach is novel and maybe it unlocked some pent up demand, or maybe that demand would have gone to contractors or something else. Mm-hmm. So to the extent that you can detect this, are these people who would have hired you or someone to do Laravel kind of no matter what, but because of the novelty and the simplicity of your approach, they got attracted away from other people to you, do you think? Or do you think this tapped into stuff that would have been pushed off? Like, we'll get to this someday. Like it's because it feels more maintenance-y and small features. And can you fix this? Can you add that? Not big projects. So it's the kind of thing that people could defer. Like, do you have any sense of that just through conversations with clients that you ended up landing?
Yeah, there's definitely two profiles. So out of the gate, I would say most of the people were people that would have hired a contractor or maybe even us prior. And some of them did have projects, like they were launching a new site and it wasn't done yet, but they had a list of features to build. So they had a clear scope of work and they're like, I need somebody to move on this. Mm-hmm. So that was sort of one category and probably the predominant category to start. But others over the years now, that the 2 years that we've been doing this publicly, are people that I don't think would ever have hired us. And these were people that are looking to hire an employee and they can't find somebody right now, or they know that it's going to maybe take them 3 months. And they're like, well, I'll just divert the salary to these guys and I'll keep something moving forward. Like they don't even have very high expectations for us to a certain extent. Like they know we're going to do a good job,
Right.
But they're not looking for us to be full time. They're just like, I just want to keep momentum while we're looking for the next person.
Right. Okay. So I'm an old PHP guy. I was like certified at PHP 5 before Laravel even came out. And maybe you could tell me, having been out of the dev game for so long, is there a particular type of client that chooses Laravel over Rails or something else? Or is it really like why would someone choose Laravel in the first place? I'm wondering if there's any connection or how big the market. I'm just like looking for some kind of, is it just
I have no idea.
Personal preference?
It's all over the place. For us, there are people that come to us that just need an app and they could not care less if we use Laravel or Rails or whatever. Like they're going to trust us to make that decision. And then there's the teams, they've already chosen Laravel. So a lot of times I don't ask them like, well, why did you choose this 5 years ago? But it's teams of all sizes. It's solo devs all the way up to like, we worked on teams with 24 developers on a single dev team.
Okay. So it's just some choice that they made at some time.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I would pick it too, just because I have a PHP background.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I was just wondering if there was anything special about Laravel that might have enabled this kind of success, but it sounds like it's a framework and people use it.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So the big question on people's minds when they hear about this concept of like, well, is scope creep, to finish the idea, but how do you present that to people initially? So when you first have a lead comes in, what happens next? Do you have a phone call with them, or do they just click buy now? Or, like, what happens?
We have had one person put in their credit card, because I have a buy now button wired up to Stripe, without a single phone call. I've never met this person before. They were in Singapore. They signed up, and I'm like, what? Like, at first I thought, is this like some sort of money laundering scam? What's happening here? And it was a fine client. I think we stayed on a few months, but he just liked what he saw. But no, generally speaking, people have some familiarity with us through our work in the Laravel community, whether it's the newsletter or, I've spoke at the Laracon conference, which is like their flagship conference. We have a podcast. So they kind of come in warm. We generally will have a sales call though, like, cause they have some questions, and I'd like to make sure our expectations are aligned. And I've sort of refined this over the almost 2 years we've been doing it, which is to almost weed out up front if our expectations are way off. So I might even say to them, in the first month, like, what would you consider a success? Like, are we shipping 2 features? Are we shipping 10 features? Like, what does that look like to you in general terms? I know this is very fuzzy, but like, just even the way they answer that and think about it tells me off the bat if we have wildly misaligned expectations or not.
Do you get a lot of people confused about the model? Like, they're like, we expected hourly billing, or what even is this? And so what? Yeah, the confusion. How do you talk through that?
Sure, it's sort of, it's not like they expected us to be hourly, but the first confusion is like, well, I know you don't charge hourly, but like, how many hours do I get? Like all over the place. And so the way I address that on the website and in our calls is our motto, our commitment is we ship something of value each week. Now that's still very fuzzy. That doesn't answer the question about hours, but it sort of sets an expectation for cadence. Is like, you're not going to be hearing from me daily, but you will be hearing from me weekly, right? So a lot of devs will go dark for 3+ weeks, and then what did they get done? Or they'll get the timesheet with all the hourly invoices on it.
Nothing shipped.
So I'm making that commitment. Like, I won't join your meetings, I won't join your daily stand-up, but we will check in weekly, and something will be shipped of value. So that kind of offsets that question. But then we've had other people to the extreme where they assume, oh, for that price, like, you're working full time for me. Like, this happens a lot in Europe, where dev salaries tend to be a little bit lower. There's an assumption like, oh, for that price, you're working full time. And so I'll head that off right away too. Like, I'll be very clear. Our website says this is not full time. We have multiple clients, multiple projects. But that has been a confusion that's come up more than once.
And so you just sort of talk them through it, and they either are cool with it or they're not cool with it. And I like that you pivot it from how many hours do we get to, well, as many as it takes for you to get something valuable every week. And it focuses them on the outcome more than the inputs, which, I mean, honestly, is the exact same thing when you do hire someone. I mean, I've had employees before or managed employees before, and it's like they're getting their monthly salary pretty much no matter what.
Right.
And did they, make our clients happy? Did they ship a feature? Did they build something that's providing value to clients? That's what you really care about.
Yes.
And you care a lot less about, how many hours did you put in? And I don't really want to hear about how you researched something and went down a rabbit hole and turns out it was a waste of time. It's like, just ship something, okay? And I'll be happy.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a good segue into the question I almost asked probably 5 minutes ago, is how do you manage scope creep? So if you're getting 75, is it still 7,500?
No, at the beginning of this year, we increased it to 9,500. Okay. Because the demand was just way too high. So it's like, well, let's take on fewer clients and keep our sanity. And it still is fine. Like, we're still full. Okay.
And how do you manage the scope creep? Like, how does it work? So if you just said you're not in meetings, that's great. So that's a huge time savings. How do they get the requests to you? How do you manage them? How do you get the information you need to ship that valuable feature every week?
Yeah, the mechanics are pretty similar to what you would do if you're billing hourly or working on projects, which is you have some sort of project management tool. Like we prefer just using GitHub, which is where we're already working for code, right. Code review and shipping codes and code and deployment. They have a whole issues section. It's very simple. It's not full blown Jira or things like this, but you can stack up tasks and you put them in the order you want us to do them. Sometimes we'll push back and I'll be like, this task seems a little big for a 1 week task, or there's not enough detail, or we have questions. So we usually have some sort of means of communication, whether it's email. If we've been with a client a while, I might even invite them to join like our Slack. You can have like a private Slack Connect channel, or I'm not getting like the full noise of their whole Slack workspace, but it just makes it easier to communicate. Or we will have a call. Like I'm not opposed to meetings if there's an agenda that is worthwhile. Right. So we'll sit together and figure something out, whiteboard it, drop some wireframes, whatever we have to do to figure it out.
Who's allowed to put issues in GitHub? Do you not really care, and it's just whatever's at the top is what you work on?
Yeah, generally speaking, we do have a single point of contact, and they kind of they're the ones maybe they have more of an opinion who can give us work than I would. Right. As long as it's clear that this is what I'm working on, I don't really care who dreamed up the ticket or who's the one that is responsible for reviewing it.
Okay, and is the person who's let's say it is a single point of contact, is that usually the person who decided to hire you, or do they delegate to someone?
Sometimes they'll delegate. If it is a bigger company, there's been times where like maybe the CTO is the one that made the hiring decision, and then he'll introduce us to the team, and maybe that team has a project manager, and now like they're our point of contact. So that's probably not the norm. I would say maybe less than 25% of our clients are that size. Most of them, the person that made the decision to hire us is the person we'll be working with as our point of contact. Okay.
And is that usually CTO or founder?
It can be. In a smaller company, it might just be a dev lead, or a really small company. Yeah, like then it would be the founder, or a solo dev. We've had solo devs hire us where they built a product. Yeah, it's successful. It's gaining traction, and they're like, "Oh, I'm a little outside my expertise. I need some of this stuff shored up," and then they'll hire us. So I've been surprised at the small size of some companies that have hired us, because we're not cheap. Like, even if you break it out hourly, it would still be a pretty high effective hourly rate. But it still resonates because of the easy start and stop, I think, is part of it.
How long does it take to onboard someone? So if you have an opening and they, press that buy button, you wake up on a Monday morning and there's a new client, do they have to wait, or can you slot them in pretty quickly?
This was a lesson we learned the hard way. So especially when we first launched this, I think the first month we had 3 people sign up. And what I quickly discovered, this sounds obvious in hindsight, is like month 1 is the hardest month for us. Yeah, that makes sense. Because we're getting access to their code and we're downloading it and we're trying to get it running and we're understanding the business domain. And it's just all this ramp up time. Yeah. Even though we're efficient and we're good at it and we've been in and out of a lot of projects, like it just takes time. So our rule now is we will not onboard more than 1 client in a month. So if and we always do it on the first of the month, because that's another thing too, just from a billing simplification perspective, it's always the first of the month. So I have somebody starting new November 1st. If somebody came to me today, the earliest I would start would be December 1st. And it's just, and I'll explain it to them, like, if you want it sooner, I appreciate that, but this is for your benefit. This is not just for me.
Yeah.
I just we can't manage onboarding multiple projects in 1 month. It's too hard.
Mm-hmm. And how do you basically swipe the credit? They swipe the credit card on the first, or like, how do you defer the billing if they?
No, I'll invoice them. So with the exception of the one person who clicked buy now, we'll agree. We're going to pick a start time. I will send them the invoice. We invoice up front. So I'm like, if you want to start November 1st, I have to be paid by November 1st.
Yep.
So we'll do some paperwork, and I'll even get access to their GitHub or their Slack or whatever leading up to the first, because that's real background type tasks, so we can hit the ground running. But yeah, I'll set it up, and then FreshBooks, it usually just automatically charges the card. Some want to pay other ways. It's more of a pain for me, but if they want to pay by bank transfer or something, I'll allow that too. That's fine.
And is it a true subscription where it is auto renewing every month and swiping or charging the payment? Okay.
Yeah, unless they're using like a bank transfer where they have to initiate it. But if they pay through, I guess if they pay through FreshBooks, they could uncheck the box, but I don't think anybody has ever done that. They always just let it charge automatically.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So once you got someone onboarded, you're sort of at cruising altitude, you got their environment set up locally. Has it ever happened that you sort of get into their code base and you're like, woof, this is a mess, or they don't have a dev environment. They're just doing everything on prod. Like, what happens? And do you try and sniff that out ahead of time, or do you try and say to them, look, I know you want us to work on these things, but the foundation is shaky and we'll go way faster if we can spend a month shoring up the foundation? And then, like how sort of architecture or strategic do you get about the code base, or do you just like cowboy code firemen, like, let's go patching bugs?
Yes, we join a lot of messy projects. As a tangent, I've actually found the messier the project, the more value we can deliver easier. Like they're way better clients for us, and they're way happier with us. But there is a certain level of quality that we need to operate. So for example, I can't tell you how many projects we join where the README file in their GitHub repo is like the default Laravel README. And I'm like, how do I set this up? I can figure it out. So my first pull request will often be, I'm going to set this up locally, and I'm going to document the steps. They may be very simple steps, but that's what your README will be. So the first pull request is me giving a README that now the next developer on the team can use. And there's always like 100 little tiny things like, oh yeah, you're going to need this installation key or this or that. So I'll capture all of that and kind of build up some documentation. I don't know that we've ever gone to like we have to take a whole month to do something, but there will be some things that I've seen that are broken. Like, not to get too technical here, but like database migrations, like how do you spin up a copy of the database? If I've joined projects where that's broken, and they're like, well, we'll just give you a copy of like the production database and we'll sanitize it. I'm like, no, we're gonna fix this, and that might take a week. So that might be week one, is like, we'll get your migrations fixed, but then everybody on the project again can benefit from it. So we will do some of that, but we usually do it in the context of also working on what they asked us to do. Right.
So that you get some points on the board, and it's not just, getting ready to do some work.
Right.
What about, this seems like a little bit longer shot, but what about infrastructure things? Like, does that present problems sometimes, or do you get involved with that at all? Or is that all ironed out these days?
I believe we specifically say on our website, we do not touch your production environment, because we're not trying to get involved in that. And so, because that also implies then you need to be available for support. Like if it goes down, and I absolutely do not want to be in that position.
Right.
Now, that being said, some of those business level clients, like that don't even know what Laravel is, it's a little different relationship, and they're not coming to us through our website generally. Like they're coming to us through a referral or somebody else we know. So we will take on production for them, but then we own it completely. I mean, they own the account, they own the domain and everything, but we own it in terms of responsibility. Like we would monitor it and keep it up to date, and nobody else would break it except us.
Exactly.
But yeah, if we're joining a team that has ops and all that, I don't want access to production.
Okay. And so what about migrate? So they already have someone there who's technical enough to migrate things from your environment or wherever you're pushing it to,
yes,
to test and eventually. Okay. So,
yeah.
Cool. How many of these sorts of clients can you handle at the same time? The two of you?
I think last year, I think the max we had was about 10. And
at a time.
And there's two of us. It was way too much. Like we got the work done and the clients were happy, but from my perspective, it was way too much context switching.
Yeah.
And I was working more hours than I wanted to work. At this stage of my career, I don't want to say I'm winding down, but I'm definitely taking my foot off the gas. And so I don't want to work 60-hour weeks. So that was way too much. On the low side, we've gone down to as low as like 2 or 3. And like, yeah, honestly, that's kind of nice. Like if I could plan it so my summers were 2 clients, I would take that every year. So the sweet spot is probably somewhere in between there.
Okay. And so that's somewhere between 2 and 10 for 2 people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how long do clients typically stay with you before they churn?
We have had some join literally just for a month. They had something very specific they wanted, and that was it. I have a client, I'm thinking, that is like they predated all of this. Like we actually transitioned them from the project-based pricing to like the retainer model to the dev subscription through the price increases, so multiple years. And there's no end in sight. They're very happy with us. So, cool. But I would say the average is probably 3 to 6 months.
Okay. That's interesting. I don't know what I would have guessed, honestly.
Yeah.
It's an interesting arrangement. What on the low end and on the low end, you've said you've had like single solo developers. On the high end, what's the biggest organization that you've had to integrate with? And then maybe also, what do you think the sweet spot is for in terms of the companies for you, for the clients, sort of organizational structure and size? Like, what is the absolute home run for you? Like, they've got a product person but no CTO, or the founder is, so like, do you even know? Can you answer that question?
I've thought about this a lot because I think if I could refine this more specifically, it could shape our marketing and make us more effective.
Yep.
The other, like the line I'm trying to walk here is, I think I mentioned this earlier, is clients that have sort of messy projects that they're not in good shape. They don't have good tests. They don't have documentation. They really benefit from us. Like I can come in week 1 and fix something that they've felt as a point of friction for like years. And it's not even always lack of knowledge that they didn't fix it, but it's just like inertia, and like people on the team, employees, like they got to sit in meetings and do all this work. And so they're pulled 100 different directions, and I can really like laser focus and just like make the product better. But the reason I say it's balanced is like, those are profitable and valuable projects to the client, profitable to us, valuable to them, but they're not the ones I really like working in the most, because it's hard too. Like it's like you're trying to like find where all the dead bodies are buried, and like there's all sorts of dead code that you're eliminating, and it's like I don't want to get into like firefighting or rescue projects, but it is where we deliver a lot of value. So size smaller is better than bigger. I love working with a solo founder or a small dev team. The bigger it gets, the more bureaucracy there is. And like in a way, it's a little better for us because those bigger companies tend to move way slower.
Yeah, so just easy to satisfy.
Yeah, their expectations are way lower. In fact, like right now, they're not technically under this dev subscription model, but I am monthly working for them, and they're a publicly traded large company, and I might only hear from them once a month, right? So I love clients like that, but I have no way of like figuring out how to attract those.
Right.
I don't want to market to them, but when they happen, they're great. But yeah, the smaller ones I think are a better fit for us.
How do you? Let's get back to the delivering a valuable something of value every week. Because here's the flip side of the the flip side of this model that the flip side of the scope question for people who are considering this model is, how do I know when to stop?
Yeah.
So they have a tendency, especially like sort of like people pleasers and just perfectionists. They certainly think like, oh, I mean, if I had, they just don't know when to stop, right? Like, like, well, I've got more hours and there's more tickets, so I have to keep going. So how do you think about that? And what would you say to someone who was maybe burning themselves out by just, working 80 hours a week for 2 clients and there's just sort of never ending backlog?
Yeah, it depends on what the motivation is for working that hard. I certainly in the past have experienced that for a variety of reasons. Some of it is like you have this natural hunger and drive when you're first starting out. Like you'll say yes to anything just because you're trying to establish yourself.
Right.
And it's like, I think I got 10 years into my career as a solo where I'm like, oh, I don't need to do that anymore. Like there was this realization, like I can still do good work, but I don't have to, that desperation, or that's probably too strong a word, but like the drive to always sell doesn't need to be there. So that's sort of one thing. But the other is, like you mentioned, perfectionist. I would even say like just taking pride in your craft and wanting to do a good job. That can be a little bit more subjective, and we still kind of struggle with that balance. There have definitely been weeks and months where we put way more into a project than we probably should have from a purely monetary perspective, or even from the perspective of what the client expected. Mm-hmm. But it still felt good to us in the moment. And it sort of bought us some breathing room for future months where maybe we do a little bit less, or we're able to do our work more efficiently.
Right.
So we can deliver the same amount with less effort. So I don't have like a strict metric. Sometimes it's like, what project do I feel like working on today? Because that's the one I'm going to be most engaged with. And so that's part of why I like the fluidity of this schedule, is you can sort of play to your strengths in the moment and not have to like watch the clock and I got to hit at least 10 hours for this client this week. Sometimes you go over, sometimes you go under, but as long as they're happy, that's sort of my guiding metric.
How do you know if they're happy? If you're not having regular meetings, like is there enough communication asynchronously that you can tell, or like, because there's certainly times when, you're doing the work, they're doing something else, and you're not communicating about the sort of meta layer of the relationship. You're just doing the day to day. How do you have like a check-in of some kind on a monthly basis or something? What does that look like so that you know you're keeping your promise?
Right. Yeah. Most of it is, well, I'll make an exception. So the first month, I directly ask them. Right. Mm-hmm. I will check in at the end of month one. Because the other thing is too, we give a 100% money back guarantee the first month. Mm. So I will check in with them. I'm not asking like, do you want a refund? But I'm like, hey, we're coming up on the end. I want to make sure you're happy. I want to make sure, like, do you want to renew for month 2? Were you happy with month 1? Like there's a definite check-in point about 3 weeks into the project where I explicitly make them tell me, are they happy or not?
Yep.
But beyond that, it is a bit more nuanced. And so it is tough because it's asynchronous, impersonal communication, right? You're communicating via Slack or GitHub issues.
Yeah.
But there's enough signals I have found where, like, if they're not asking a lot of questions, like, hey, how's this going? What's this? What's that? The clients will tell you if they're unhappy for the most part, but I'll also listen for like positive signals, like, oh, that was really great. Or, wow, you got that done faster than expected. Or, so-and-so reviewed this code and they said it was great. Like I can look for signals like that. Mm-hmm. I probably should check in more explicitly beyond that month 1, but I don't have a regular cadence of doing that right now.
I heard a great trick. I've never done this, but and I wish I could remember where I heard of it, but on the invoice, they would send invoices, and it was like, your bill for this month is $9,500, but if you feel like you didn't get that much value out of it, feel free to pay whatever you want. And then if you get a check for $5,000, then you're like, let's have a phone call and see if we can sort of correct this for next month.
Interesting.
But yeah, I was like, wow, that is brilliant. That's a good one. Because then you don't have to like bother them. You don't have to have a meeting. It gives them a really emotionally safe way to kind of express their dissatisfaction, but do what they think is fair. I thought, I was like,
Right.
wow, that is really good. Let's switch into how you organize your week. So you don't currently have 10 clients, right?
No,
You've got some
nowhere near
number.
that, yeah.
Okay. So, but you're full. I think you mentioned that.
Yeah, we're full. Like we decided at the beginning of Q4, like we could use another client or two, and this was mainly Aaron's decision. He's a little younger than me. He still has a little more drive and likes sitting at the keyboard longer than I do. He's like, you know what? Let's try to get one or two more clients. So we're full in the aspect like we got both those clients. So we got started somebody October. We're starting somebody new November. I'm not saying I would turn somebody away for December, but we're not actively looking for any more in the short term. But in terms of balancing the week out, Aaron and I do have a standing meeting on Monday mornings where we just look at, okay, who are all the active subscriptions? And I'll throw one thing in here too. We will still do a project. So this was something I learned. I've kind of like said everything good about subscription models. There are some negatives. And one of the things is like we sort of missed having that big meaty 6-month project where we could go nuts on something. We could work as hard as we wanted to ship it as fast as possible and make them even more happy. So we will occasionally have one of those overlapping subscription models too. We don't have anything like that right now.
Is that usually a client that came from subscription or not?
It could be, yeah.
Okay, so they got
in
some
fact,
big
sometimes
thing.
If somebody comes in with a subscription as a subscription lead, and I can sense there's some urgency, like they have something with some scope, like maybe they're like, oh yeah, we have a trade show in February. Like maybe this is not a good fit. I would feel better if you have like a target date. If we had the freedom, like schedule wise, to go as hard as we wanted to, and I'm just not eating all that time. Again, it's weird because we're not billing hourly, but they get it. Like they get there's a certain level of effort. And so we might steer them toward a project, or we've been working with a client for a while and they have a big initiative, and we'll just pause the subscription and just like, all right, we're going to focus on this one project with a fixed price and a fixed scope for the next 4 months. And then we'll go back to the subscription model.
Okay. So back to the Monday morning meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll sort of look at like, there's 5 projects we have active right now, subscriptions, and we'll divvy it up. Like, all right, Aaron, which ones are you going to do? Joel, which ones are you going to do? And then we'll kind of carve out in our mind, like what we would consider a successful week. Because I say ship something of value, but that's very fuzzy. Like somebody might have a big feature that's going to I'm going to have to crank on that thing a week or two to get it into a usable state.
Yeah.
And there's other weeks where there might be like a potluck of smaller things. And I might be like, you know what, I'll do 3 or 4 of these. I'll do 5 of them. And just kind of mix and match. And so that we'll sort of internally shape what we think is a reasonable amount. And I will often share that with a client. Like, here's what we're going to work on. Like, here's what you've stacked up for us.
Yep.
Here's kind of what I'm aiming for this week. We'll see where we get. But I like to set those expectations. And then from that point forward, we go forth and work. Things always change, right? So, as a developer, this. Some things take way longer than you expected, right? Or some unforeseen thing. So we might, during the middle of the week, shift and like Aaron needs help with something or I need help with something, and we'll just adjust to try to make that week a success. But it's pretty fluid, but at the start of the week is like the cadence that we set.
Okay. And do you typically stick, you with these code bases and him with the other code bases, or do you purposely try and cross?
Yeah. That's one of our selling points, is that you get both of us, even if you're only doing like the one task at a time.
Yeah.
Internally, we're knowledge sharing. So if I'm writing code, Aaron will review it before we give it to the client to review. So there's always sort of that internal knowledge sharing and ownership process. But it also means like if I'm sick or I go on vacation, like Aaron jumps in, even if it is a client where I have the stronger relationship with them or I have more deep knowledge in the code base.
Yep.
Any one of us can jump into any other project at a moment's notice. And so that's sort of a nice selling point over being the totally solo developer that, maybe they lose interest or they go on vacation for a month or something happens in their life where all of a sudden they're not available. There's 2 of us to kind of balance each other out.
Okay. And so I don't want to get too behind the scenes in the business, but how do you you said he's like maybe more interested in sitting at the keyboard longer than you.
Yeah.
Do you like internally track your time and divvy up the revenue based on who worked the most, or you just say a 50-50 split and let's just keep it simple?
So in addition to this weekly meeting, we have a monthly meeting where we sort of will decide the splits then, right? And again, not to get too detailed, but we sort of have a handful of splits. Like most of the times, the default would be 50-50, but maybe I am on vacation that month and Aaron's going to be working a lot. We'll do like 75-25, and so it's on a month by month basis. We sort it out. But yeah, it's not tied to hours. It's nothing like that, and we try to keep it fair. Like there have been whole months when we've had fewer number of clients where Aaron will do all of the development work and I'm just cranking out the newsletter or working on a new course we're trying to launch, because we are trying to build like a product and productized service business in parallel with all of this.
Okay.
And so, we'll kind of divvy that up those ways too, independent of the client work.
Okay. Because I've certainly seen partnerships go sideways because one person was was just honestly working way harder than the other one. And it's not that anyone's being lazy but like some people, they just want to do a different amount of work. And so it sounds good to me that you're checking in on a monthly basis. It's just sort of like gut instincting, like, hey, like what does this feel like? Because you have sort of air quotes non-billable stuff that you're doing too.
Yes.
To attract leads and do other marketing. So okay. So what does do you have any kind of like administrative tools for yourself that kind of manage your calendar? Like what's your approach? Do you just block out time in the calendar and you say, okay, I'm going to work on this project here or that project there? Or do you have more like what I do, which is I just have a list of things that need to get done in a given day or week. And I just crank through them when I feel like, oh, this is a fun one to do right now. I've got energy for this. And I just can see the end of the week coming and the to-do list isn't as small as it needs to be. So I step on the gas a little bit. So you're more like...
That's more my approach. I actually don't know what Aaron does. I think he's less on the rigid side as well, where you just kind of like, you get whatever... Some things are higher priority. Like there might be a client where I know internally they're going to meet on Thursday. That's their check-in day. So I might front load them to the front of the week just so to kind of line up with their cadence. They're not asking me to do that, but we might do that just to make it easier for them. But yeah, otherwise I don't have like day one is this client, day two is that client. I manage it as needed. And I've done this long enough, even prior to the subscriptions. Because even with projects, we had to juggle multiple. So I've gotten pretty good at having a feel for what to do when. And, as much as I hate it, there's always the weekend. Like if I get behind, like I go golfing Wednesday, it's really nice though. It's the last nice day in Wisconsin.
Right.
Then I'll just work Saturday. I don't, it's fine. I like that flexibility. Actually.
Yes. That's a great one. Like I've never really thought, I don't think I've ever written about that, which means I don't think about it much, which is that like when it's just great weather, or there's some band in town or this event during the day on a Wednesday. Kids have a field trip.
I want to go with them, right?
Yeah, exactly. Trick or treating or whatever. I guess that's at night, but it's you can just do it, and then and it's going to rain on Saturday anyway, so just time shift it. It's no big deal. Oh, cool. So all right, so you alluded earlier that we've been kind of focusing on the pros of the model. What would you warn people about? So I guarantee you there are people listening to this that are like, I want to do this. It sounds so stable and predictable and wonderful. And I just kind of get to code all the time, which is what I like doing anyway, but it's diversified across a portfolio of clients and this stable income. It sounds great. So what are the sort of cautionary tales or what are the downsides of it? We already talked about it's not totally obvious how you go on vacation, but that's true with hourly too. Man. So what are some of the other things that people would be like, ooh, I didn't think of that?
Yeah. The worst by far is context switching. And that's sort of a factor of how many subscriptions you take on at a time. But I would say when we were doing project work, we'd get to like 2, maybe 3, and then be like, there's no way we're taking another project on right now. Whereas with this subscription work, you kind of get in a flow, and maybe certain clients are really easy. Like there's a bunch of light months in a row, and like, well, let's take one more on. And then all of a sudden something comes up for them, or, there's just these things that it is harder to predict. And so I would say err on the side of caution and don't take on too much, because the context switching is a killer. And even when it's manageable, it is worse than when I would just do like 2 projects or maybe even one big project. Like I do kind of miss going dark and really focusing on one thing for the whole week. So that is the biggest downside, I would say, to this model, is like you're forced to context switch at least weekly, if not daily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's not that bad. I mean, it's
not terrible.
It's a thing. It's definitely a thing. I have that too. My calendar, my to-do list is like totally jumbled. But the way you describe it, it's almost like, it reminds me of trying to write 2 books at the same time. Where, you're like, I'm not going to work full time on a book. I mean, that's like maybe 4 hours in the morning at the most. But if I were going to do 2 at the same time, because then what's funny about it is when I have a big project like that, it sort of consumes my background processing in my mind. So like anytime that I'm idle, like in line, or just, like someone else is watching TV and I'm completely not, but I'm sitting there and I'm in the back of my mind, I'm like grinding on whatever the puzzle is, like whatever the problem is. But as soon as I have 2, it's almost like I can't do either of them. It's weird. It's like right now I'm getting ready for a big test at karate, and it's only like 3 weeks away, and there's a bunch of memorizing I have to do. And so there's all of this stuff, and it's like, it affects this. I have like one free background process in the back of my mind. And so it has to be like, and I can only assign it like a task like once a month. And that's the task for the month. And anything else just really distracts. It's wild.
Yeah, I can see that. And I've definitely experienced that too. Those more cognitive tasks definitely have like a higher weight on you than like the more maintenance or menial things, for sure.
Yeah.
Another like downside, I would say, is that there are a whole subset of clients that will never go for this approach. I mean, that's true even of value pricing versus hourly. Like you're already kind of going uphill in the software development world if you don't do hourly. Mm-hmm. So there are people that if you really want to work with them, they're just not going to go for this. And I've experienced that. There's people that it was a good fit, everything else about it was right, and like they just wanted to do hourly. Like I even offered project pricing. Like, no, we don't want that. And sometimes it was like they were an agency that they billed hourly and they wanted to bring us on for something. I'm just like, this is not going to work. So
mismatch.
It limits you, but that's also a positive too, because for the people, it makes sense. They really like it because you are fairly unique. There's not a lot of people doing this, although we have had copycats. I think there was a discussion you might have been involved in where I found a bunch of people like were copying our site literally down to our guarantee and like our testimonials and everything. I'm like, what is happening here? But overall, you're unique in pricing this way.
Yeah. I feel like those people disappear quick enough. So what do you think? Again, I'm thinking of like the listener who's like, this sounds great. Some stability between, so not like, not as much feast famine. What can you tell folks about your marketing efforts? You've alluded to a couple of things, but what sorts of things, because people need to hear about you. They need to know that you exist before they can even decide if this is a good fit for them.
Yeah.
And, over the years, I've heard inside of Ditcherville, just like you really have had plenty of leads, like plenty of leads. So what are the things that you built up over time that, are sort of paying off now? So like you planted the garden, you tended to the garden, and now you're like crawling into, there's tomatoes everywhere. Yeah. So, but what did you do you think? What things moved the needle there? Maybe how long did it take before you noticed it was working? And, where would you start if you were going to do it today?
Yeah, I get that question from other developers that, that are starting out, like, well, how do I find clients? Like, well, all right, here's the 10-year plan. I don't know what you're going to do in years 1 through 9, but for sure, the gardening analogy resonates because it's like the daily email, the weekly podcast, those writing a book, launching a course, we have a community, just kind of being out there, being helpful, showing what you're talking about. That is where we get the vast majority of our leads. Like they heard about us somewhere else And then they became aware like, oh, I can hire them. And so like the two things click together. And that's where I would say 90% of our leads come from, are through those like kind of slow channels. And I'm not even it's rare I put in an email like, you can hire us. Like, I have a PS at the end, and most of the times it's a free product, or it's a book, or it's something else. It's not our $9,500 a month dev subscription. So it's definitely a slow burn, but that has the highest value for us by far.
Okay. And there's two other things. You might have alluded to one there a little bit, but two other things that work great for devs are to contribute to open source, especially if the thing that you're working on is get well known by the person who started the project, and maybe they'll tweet about you. That's for sure. But contributing to the open source thing that you're going to, not just generally like contributing to like Linux or something, but like to the, to Laravel, if you want to have people hire you to do Laravel. And the other thing that I've seen work for people over and over again is to create some kind of free what are plugins called in the Laravel ecosystem, like Gems and Rails is.
Yeah, we have packages, PHP packages, and some are Laravel specific. Yeah.
Okay. So like creating one and open sourcing it, or, just having whatever it is, like whether it's a plugin for WordPress, or it's a package for Laravel or PHP more broadly. And that creates a lot that can, if it works, people use it, then you can become pretty well known relatively quickly. Of course, it depends on how fast it takes off or people use it, but doing something and that's usually super fun for people. Like, talk to devs, they don't want to spend all day on LinkedIn, connecting with people or whatever. They want to write code. So like, how can you write code in a way that's going to attract clients? It's like, well, build a useful free tool that the kind of clients you want to work with are going to use. And then they're going to find out about you. It's like, oh my God, we've been using this for a year. So that's super helpful.
Yeah. We do also some paid advertising. There's a very popular site called Laravel News. And I think it's over a year now. We're a partner with them. So like, we're listed in their agency links or whatever. And so this quarter, when we wanted to get some more leads, I can change what our offer is on the site. And because we've been full for so long, I've advertised a testing course or the community or something else. We haven't had our dev subscription on there for a long time. So I emailed the guy and I said, hey, I want to switch our ad to our dev subscription. And that was the one. It went out in his Sunday newsletter. And I woke up Monday to 2 leads booked in my calendar. Because that's the call to action, is book now and I'll talk to you. And so like, that has been huge. And that's another place I cross-post my daily email to Laravel News. So like, he's got a much bigger newsletter than me. I think it's like 15 or even closer to 20,000. So those people are seeing like every day my stuff as well. And then couple that with the ad, and it just hits people at the right time. So it's still sort of hard to predict or control, but it's enough surface area where it seems to land more often than not. Yeah,
you've got some levers you can pull.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I feel like we could keep talking for another hour, but I think this is super inspirational. I think it's a really cool model. It's got some nuances to it, but in terms of predictability and getting to spend your time doing the kinds of things you want to do, it's great. I think it's great. So, well, thanks so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, happy to do it.
So, Joel, where can people go to find out more about this or your course or your mailing list? Where should they go?
I'll give 2 sites. So if you want to look at our dev subscription, that's nocompromises.io. If you want to see everything else, which is like the book, the newsletter, the courses, that's masteringlaravel.io. So those are the 2 main entry points to my world.
Perfect. Thanks. I'll put those in the show notes. All right, folks, that's it for this week. I'm Jonathan Stark, and I hope you join me again next time on Ditching Hourly. Bye.